Season 1, Episode 1 of Futurama, Fry and Bender run into the Hall of Criminals. Fry suggests to Bender that they could bend some bars to get out, but Bender refuses, saying he's only programmed to bend for constructive purposes. He cannot do anything that goes against his program, but in this moment he instantly changes his mind.
It's up to you to make your own decisions in life.
You're full of crap, Fry. You make a persuasive argument, Fry.
So what changed in that instant? The theory is in that instant something about the electric shock reprogrammed Bender in some way, giving the ability to go against his program. The most popular version of that theory is that in that instant, Bender became a criminal. This theory comes from the Season 3 episode, The Bird Bot of Icecatras. Something very similar happens to Bender in this one where he's once again electrocuted, but this time we can see inside his head that he's rebooting himself as a penguin after scanning the local life forms. So, what if the same thing happened to Bender when he rebooted in the Hall of Criminals, rebooting him as a criminal and giving him the ability to break rules and go against his own program? It's also worth mentioning that the Hall of Criminals can be seen in several shots, although it's never actually commented on or relevant to the story in any way. It's not really ever referenced. The other scenes all have little Easter eggs in the background with the different heads, but the Hall of Criminals doesn't seem to have a single recognizable criminal. It's interesting to me that the writers would choose to point out and introduce something so specific only never to build on it any further. Instead, we focus on Fry's speech about free will and determination to Bender. Doesn't seem like a coincidence. The Season 9 episode Free Will Hunting directly addressed the idea of whether or not robots have free will. In court, Bender's lawyer argues that Bender could not possibly have committed a crime because he is incapable of free will. Not only does the show directly tie in the idea of criminality and free will in this episode, but it establishes that by default, robots in this world do not have free will. Later in the episode, Bender tries to shoot the professor, but is unable to, supposedly because he does not have free will. Moments later, after the professor equips him with a free will unit, the only one in existence, Bender still isn't able to do it until he turns the safety off, suggesting that the safety could have been on the entire time, so maybe Bender had free will the entire time. Once he's equipped with the free will unit, Bender canonically has free will for the rest of the series, but his personality never changes after this point. Maybe he had it all along. There is some evidence against this theory, specifically that Bender steals back his quarter while in the booth with Fry. Not a huge crime, and not nearly comparable to what he does later, but technically still a crime. Additionally, in an episode where Leela puts on goggles where she can, quote, see through the eyes of a Bender unit, everything is identified as a theft target, or otherwise target for crime. However, in a later episode, we meet another bending unit named Flexo. He's a bit mischievous, but he definitely doesn't seem interested in stealing like Bender does. So maybe the goggles were actually tuning into Bender's vision specifically, since he was only a few feet away. If that's the case, then Flexo we could actually use as an example of what Bender was likely like before he was shocked. What do you think happened to Bender in this moment?